Hey now, cats, we're back again this week on the Balls from Ellwood show, and with me today is one of our favorite comedians, an all-around great guy, not to mention a fellow horror fan like Balls.
Yes.
Xtina and I, we love this dude. I'm sitting here with the one and only Josh Prey, and I'm super excited to chat with you, dude. So I'm just gonna get right into it. Before we get to you're a fellow horror fan like me, and I know we're gonna get in that later. But
Yes, sir.
I actually wanted to kind of talk to you. I wanted to know about your life growing up a little bit. Were you always driven to be a comedian? I mean, were you like a funny kid?
My entire life, I was definitely extremely goofy. Um, to be honest with you, I'm actually quite shy. I get nervous around people a lot, like extremely nervous. And as a child, I would be loud to to reverse that shy and that attention. Um, and I mean, I've always been goofy, always been funny. My dream when I was from about 8 to 14, I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to be a preacher. My mom's a pastor. I wanted to be a leader of a church. And my life went a different direction. I am a Christian man, but I don't think I was called to be a pastor yet. So yeah, I've always been goofy. I always wanted to be the center of attention, but in a more distracting way. So I know it's weird to say this for a comedian to say that they're shy, but I'm really shy, and I feel like by being loud and being funny, it distracts from my shyness.
I actually totally understand that, and I can relate to it in a lot of ways, man, because I am the same way. Like I almost created like a alter ego that I could be everything that I wanted to be because I am so shy and am so self-conscious. And that that when I'm that guy, like everybody assumes that you're not that way. But I mean, wow, I could connect that on such a deep level, dude, because I know exactly what you mean. And we have something else in common too. I actually am a Christian dude, and
Hey, shouts out to the Lord.
yeah, I actually grew up in the church, and like it's funny. Like I wanted to ask you, what does your mom think of your comedy? Is like, does she give it your blessing, or does it
Um,
offend her at all? Being that I mean, because I know, sometimes people can like mistake that, like they assume because like you could be a little raunchy that you're not that way. But I always had people judging me growing up because I have a sense of humor, and they're like, oh, how could you have a sense of humor and consider yourself to be a Christian? I mean,
um,
one of my favorite memories when I was a kid is I had a buddy and I went to his house, and this picture sticks in my head, and I always think about that. And it was called the Laughing Christ, and then it always reminds me that like we're made in His image, and like He has a sense of humor too. I think a lot of people don't realize or think about that.
I don't think I'm not going to delve into whether the Lord has a sense of humor and the way we have a sense of humor. I won't delve into that too much. But as far as my mom really don't know I curse. I don't swear in front of my mother at all. I don't even kind of say a curse word in front of my mother. The comedy that my mom does see or I do show her is very clean comedy. My mother has never been to one of my comedy shows. I would not be comfortable if she comes to one of my live comedy shows. I remember in Naples, Florida, about 6, 7 years ago, I was having a comedy show, and I was cutting up, and I was having a good time, and I went to my left, and I was going to say a dirty joke, and it was one of her Christian friends, and I just froze on stage. It was like one of the weirdest moments ever. But she gives me my blessing in regards to comedy. She says I have a gift of gab and I can make people feel good. But as far as the swearing and profanity, I try not to curse as much. Now, seeing me live is a little bit different because I feel like I want to I want to relate to the audience a little bit more, but I have done clean comedy shows, absolutely no profanity. So to answer your question, my mom, yes, she gives me her blessings in regards to making people laugh, but she is not with the swearing. She's not with the profanity. And me being a 40-year-old man, I still honor my mother for sure. So I try to make my mom proud in all instances. And also, people often do judge those who say they are Christians or believers or have a faith. Um, Christianity isn't to be boring; it's to know who you're serving. And I know and I recognize and know who I serve. But I'm not perfect, and I don't use that as an excuse. But I'm not perfect, and I do fall short sometimes, and I'm still growing.
I feel the same way, man. Like I always, it is funny because like people do that, but like I try not to let it, I try, I try to, I try to be an example in some ways, but then I guess I too fall short. I do through a lot of things that I find it's
And it
disappointing.
happens. Yes, yes, sir. It
But I mean,
happens.
I know my heart, and I like you said, I know who I serve. So I mean, that's really the
Of
important
course.
part. But that actually leads me to my next question, Josh. What was that defining moment for you that like that you knew without a shadow of a doubt that you were called to make people laugh?
Um, you know what? Out of all the interviews and podcasts I've done over the years, I've never been asked that question. You would have thought somebody would ask me that question already. Nobody has ever asked me that question. I'm gonna say fifth grade, 1995. They had a talent show, and me, a kid named Clifton Cummings, and I forgot it was another kid, Smitty Smith something. And we had a talent show and we did this dance routine. Well, it was going good and they kind of forgot some of the dance moves. And I took over and the crowd erupted and they went crazy. And I knew at 10 years old, I wanted to captivate a crowd because it made them feel good. And from that moment, I always try to make somebody laugh, make somebody's day, try to be the bearer of good news, and I never look back. But I do remember it was fifth grade, 1995, Pinecrest Elementary. We danced to a song called "Come On, Ride That Train,"
And
and
ride
ride
it,
it,
choo
choo choo.
choo.
It was the routine was horrible, and it was three guys in white t-shirts. I don't know what we were doing. All we did was this the entire time. Oh my gosh! I pray nobody has that video,
Oh
but
man, I was gonna ask you if you had
nah,
it.
nah, absolutely not. But yeah, 1995. I knew I had something.
Well, let me ask you this. Over the span of time, would you say being a comedian has changed your life? And would you say for the better or worse?
It depends. Being a comedian has definitely has some perks. I've been able to see the world without comedy. I would not have been able to see the world. I've been in 43 states in America. I've been to Europe, Canada, Mexico, Hawaii. And I separate Hawaii because when you go to Hawaii, you realize Hawaii is its own country. But so it has its perks. I'm able to provide most of the time for my friends and family fiscally. You get to meet a lot of great people. You literally change people's lives because you don't understand that people will emotionally connect with you when you are telling these jokes because you can relate to somebody. And I've been fortunate enough to relay serious topics and conversations in a light comedic way where people can share my information in a more soft way, even if it's important or dire. As far as the negative aspect of it, your privacy is gone. um, Eventually, you may seek some validation in the interaction with those who follow you. So I may put my all into one video and it gets no no clicks, no likes. There's no traction behind it. So I can probably feel that, and that's a very depressive, saddening thing. Another con would be the expectations of people. You when you become an entertainer in any field, whether it's singing, acting, being a comedian, newscaster, podcaster, people have expectations of you. You have quotas you have to meet, and sometimes you can't physically or mentally meet those quotas. So you begin to feel like you're letting people down, and you take on that mental aspect of it. And also in entertainment, if you don't like in my position, if you don't laugh and I don't make you raise those cheeks, I don't get paid. So I literally live by the laugh daily, not weekly, not monthly, daily. So it's a lot of stress you put on yourself.
What have you learned from your early experiences in stand up that has actually helped you in your comedy today?
I learned that everybody has a voice and it's good to find your own voice in stand up. When I first started, I wanted to be Richard Pryor. I wanted to be Martin Lawrence, Don Rickles. I wanted to mimic those guys so bad that I wasn't sounding like Josh Prey. And going through the motions, performing with other entertainers and comedians, different venues, states, different places, you begin to find your own voice and you begin to find what makes you unique and makes people want to come see you. You can tell the exact same joke as another person, which you shouldn't do, comedian one on one, comedy one on one. But if you did, I could tell a joke and another guy could tell a joke. And because I found my own voice, the jokes hit, sound, and come off differently.
Where do you get your inspiration to create comedy from? Is it topical, or is it just something you're walking down the street and you see, or does it just come to you?
It comes to me and I try to it comes to me and I think it has something to do with my ADHD. I might notice something that nobody else notices. It's everyday life. I don't watch one of my downfalls is I don't really watch TV. I watch the same old shows. Like I watch Family Guy, SpongeBob, The Office, South Park. That's it. When it comes to movies, I watch Dodgeball, Good Burger, and The Sandlot over and over and over. I watch the TV show Martin, and that's it. So I'm not really caught up on current news. So all of my comedy comes from random observation, like walking to the mailbox, walking through Walmart, going to a movie theater with my kids, having to get on oil change. Real life happenings encourage my comedy.
Well, I want to ask you, a lot of comics when they're coming up, or at some point in their career, they get heckled. Have you ever been heckled, and how did you handle that situation?
I was heckled in 2016, maybe. I was heckled by a young lady while I was hosting a talent show. And the lady, she just would not leave me alone. Again, I'm not the person that's gonna fight an audience member and go back and forth to ruin the comedy show. So I made that young lady a part of my comedy show. And I asked her questions like about all the performances and what does she think. And eventually she got tired of me. Another instance, I was in Tampa, Florida. A young lady had too much to drink, and I don't think she did it on purpose, but she couldn't handle her liquor. I made security remove her in a polite way. I don't embarrass people. I don't joke when they're walking out. I have respect for everybody in the room at all times. I had another gentleman in Tampa. Tampa's a tough city. My gosh. It was a gentleman. He looked just like Aaron Hernandez. He had tattoos everywhere. And I made a joke about the previous comic before me, which happened to be his friend. And I don't think the guy knew me and that guy were friends. And he threatened me violently. I
Oh,
rolled with the
wow.
punches. But I was definitely aware and I definitely made sure that those who came with me was ready to protect me if anything went left.
I wanted to ask you, is there ever a joke that you have regretted making, and why?
It's a good question. Um, no, I don't think there was a joke. No, I made yeah I did. I made a joke about pit bulls like back in 2015, 16, and it was on Facebook actually. And I'm scared of dogs, so it was just a light joke where it was a dog, and I said something like, "All pit bull owners will tell you that they dog don't bite until you're left in a room alone with it, and they come back and you missing your arms and your legs." Um, I don't think the joke was vulgar or anything like that. I do think it was insensitive to dog owners who like pit bulls only because the pit bull already has a tough reputation to get a bad name, and those dog owners love those animals. And I'm not a dog owner. I'm not a pet owner, so I can't put myself in the shoes of pet owners to tell them to not be offended. You get what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So I won't say I regretted it because it wasn't a joke that bashed anybody, but it was an unfair joke about pit bull owners. So I made sure, I walk a finer line and I'm more conscious of the things I say.
I wanted to ask you, has there ever been a time where you're trying to write comedy, where you've ever gotten like writer's block? And like, what's the longest you've ever went without be able to, to come up with something creative?
I experience writer's block every single day. I'm not making that up. But
Really?
the longest I've ever been without creating was probably a week. I just couldn't think of anything funny, and that's when going back to the beginning of the conversation, seeking the validation of the consumer becomes a negative. I got writer's block because I started thinking, okay, what would my fans like? Why did that video go viral? I was chasing another viral moment or a viral video, instead of just letting the content flow through me like it naturally does. I was at that point in time in my career, I was probably more desperate for clicks and the affirmation I got from the clicks and the interaction.
Let me ask you this, Josh. Has being a comedian ever affected your relationships, whether it be family, friends, a significant other? Has it ever been
Yeah,
hard?
yeah, 100%. And the only thing it has it affected two things: family and friendships. Because when you begin to get any kind of notoriety, people think you change, but in actuality, it's the people that change around you because they are probably looking at you from a higher point and they think you're maybe more arrogant or cocky. But when you get into a zone, sometimes your friends and family don't understand that this is your livelihood and you don't have the time to maybe go to certain events because for every 2 or 3 days I'm not online, there's another person becoming Josh Prey that can take my spot. We're living in a world of constant reinvention. And I lost a lot of friendships. And one of the things I hated, I actually talked to one of my best friends today. Um, Friends and family, they will sometimes try to treat you like they've always treated you. Like you're just Josh Prey to us. I don't care how many followers you got, how many shows you do. You're just Josh Prey. You're nothing special. In actuality, I am special. I put in a lot of work. I put in a lot of time to be recognized, to make people laugh. Like, encourage that. Don't treat me like I've done nothing or I haven't achieved nothing. And for years, I let people, to make them feel good, treat me like I hadn't achieved anything, like I hadn't gone anywhere, I hadn't traveled the world, I hadn't made people cry in joy from my comedy and change lives. So I had to remove some people out of my life that I didn't recognize was bringing me down by trying to humble me when I didn't need to be humble. And me being a Christian man, my career is all God. This ain't my plan, this is God's plan. So I want to be joyful. I want to say what's up to everybody. I want to be excited because through me, I hope people see God. Look what God is doing for me. He could do it for you. So I want to champion that more.
I got a couple more things, and then we'll kind of get into
Yeah, for sure.
our thing in common that we have, our horror movie thing. I'm eager to talk about, but I wanted to ask you, what's one thing about you that you enjoy that might surprise your fans?
Um, the gym. I know I make a lot of chubby jokes. I eat terribly, but I love the gym. I love the smell of it. I love the feel of it. I love to see people lift weights and work out. I love to work out. It's one of my biggest joys. And I also absolutely love R&B slow music. I know people look at me and they think this he does a lot of hip hop or he does. Nah, if I'm in my headphones, 9 times out of 10, I'm listening to very slow love making music. I absolutely love that. And I love to watch um, makeup tutorials, nail videos, hair videos. I'm just interested in stuff like that. I think cosmetologists, I think they're probably some of the most talented people in the world, and they don't get recognized for what they do in the art they create, whether it's makeup, hair, and nails. I love to see those people perform.
I find that stuff interesting. I get that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let me ask you, have you ever had a supernatural experience?
From what I consider supernatural,
Yes.
um, I think I've had, and I don't know what it is, I forgot the term, astral projection. I think I've had astral projection where I had an out of body experience and I projected myself and I was in some places that wasn't a dream. It was way too real. And nobody, you can't tell me I didn't travel there and experience it. Like I saw myself sleeping. I was over my body. And I personally think I've experienced astral projection.
That is a form of sleep paralysis. I do believe it. You probably did. I mean, have you ever seen that documentary, The Nightmare?
No, no, sir.
It's actually shot like a horror film, but it's all about like sleep paralysis and the different subgenres of sleep paralysis. And that's actually astral projection is actually a subgenre of sleep paralysis. If you ever get a chance, check it out. But
Oh my gosh. I
that
should,
actually,
is it on YouTube?
it's streaming. I think. Do you have Shutter?
I have Shudder.
I
Yes,
think
the
it was
horror
on
app.
Shutter. I'm not sure if it's still on there, but I don't think it'd be too hard to find. It might even be on Tubi at this point or something. But I'll check it out after, and I'll send it to you where it is. But it's actually really interesting. Like
Please do that. I definitely love to see that.
I could talk about that with you for an hour, man. I find any sort of like that kind of sleep thing is like it's so fascinating to me. But
Sleep paralysis is extremely scary, man.
dude, I had a couple experiences. I've had buddies that had, and I had a friend in high school, and she swore that she would always tell me these creepy stories about. She would always she was afraid to sleep in a room. She would wake up and see this guy in a black hat and a black cape, and it freaked me out, man, just the way she would tell it. But then I watched this documentary, and they show people like from all over the world that's never met each other, and
Have the same thing.
they all tell the same story about seeing the same cloaked figure with the hat. And I'm like, oh,
Listen, I'm not making this up. 2010, maybe 2009, 2010, the same experience. I was in my bedroom and a guy was moving towards me real slow at the edge of my bed, black cloak, black hoodie, walking towards me. And my mom always told me if I was having a nightmare to pray and plead and out loud, outwardly say, I plead the blood of Jesus all over me. And that's what I would say. I plead the blood of Jesus, and it go away.
did it work?
It worked. And so every time I'm having sleep paralysis, I say that, come right up out of my dream every time.
Well, I mean, I can't think of a better transition in our horror movie talk than that. So, I mean, yeah, we've talked, and you've said that you've been a fan of horror movies like myself. I wanted to ask you, I feel in everybody's life there's one particular scary movie that they see from a young age, and it makes you a fan. I call it like the chasing the dragon moment, where you see a scary movie, and then you're like, you know what? I think I really like scary movies now, and like. I just want to ask you, do you have one that sticks out in your mind that like you
I don't know if this is considered horror, but it gotta be. Arachnophobia changed my life.
that's a horror comedy. That counts. I mean,
So I'm arachnophobic. Like
I
one,
no, I am too, man.
yeah.
I just watch Infested, and because like my wife was like, so I watched him. Like, how bad can it be? It actually freaked me out. Like, I actually
No,
when I get in bed now, I'm like looking for spiders. I'm like,
nah.
um, when I was a kid,
Arachno,
arachnophobia it freaked me out when I seen it in the theater. I mean, the good thing about that movie is the funny parts are funny, but when it's scary, it's pretty scary.
you know, arachnophobia ruined my life.
Oh
Child's
no.
Play, but before that, Child's Play was my introduction to horror. And from the age 4 or 5 till about 12, I feared Chucky like you wouldn't believe. Like, and it was every aspect of that movie. Like, people were looking at it from, and me being this young, I shouldn't have been that aware, but people were looking at it from like just the dog killing people. I was looking at it from a spiritual standpoint because he wanted to take that little boy's soul. And again, my mom was a pastor, and we don't play about demonic spirits, and he kept trying to take his soul. So that movie right there, it freaked me out really bad, and it drew me towards more.
So I mean, do you find films like The Exorcist scary for that reason?
the the scariest demonic film, in my opinion, and nobody talks about this, wasn't The Exorcist, wasn't Poltergeist. It was The Exorcism of Emily
Emily
Rose.
Rose. Oh, that's an incredible. That is such an underrated film, man. I love that movie.
Listen, the scene where she initially gets possessed, Lord, please cover me in your blood. Forgive me for the conversation. In Jesus' name, I thank you, amen. The scene when she initially gets possessed, where the demon is trying to go in her body when she's in the bedroom alone,
Mhm,
and she wakes up, right? And she beats it. She wakes up, but then she stands in front of the window
mhm.
and gets repossessed.
Oh yeah, that's
And she's laying, and then another scene where she's in the church and she's like bent all out of shape, and her boyfriend walks in, and she just crying, begging him not to leave. And he's like, "I won't leave you. I'll be here with you." Oh my gosh.
That see, that's my the thing that bothers me a lot of the time, and I don't know if you feel the same way. I feel like a performance like that is almost Oscar worthy, and like
It was.
I feel like the Academy doesn't take the horror genre seriously because like I mean I think for the first time once the substance got like actually accolades, they're finally starting to come around and see that horror movies can be you know morality tales, and they can be taken serious, and they can tell a story legitimately. I really wish people seen that. Like I have a buddy that I do a show with, and he was always kind of in like independent films, and he never thought, or never, I should say, took the genre seriously. And I've been showing him things, and he's like, "Wow, I never would have thought in a million years that like this was a legitimate, a genre to tell a story or to make
Yes.
things." And like, I really wish a lot of people would see that. Like, because
I
growing up,
know.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, no, I cut you off. I apologize.
No, I'm just saying when I was growing up, like a lot of people would get like afraid of like nursery, like the the nursery tales and different things
Hmm.
so that, like that, and I almost feel like horror movies a lot of the time. Because, like, if you think of all the tropes in horror films, they are kind of, some of it is kind of like, especially slashers or like morality tales. Because if you have like premarital sex, if you drink, if you do drugs, if you're all around bad person, what happens to you in a horror movie? Yep. So, I mean, how is that not a morality tale? I mean, I feel like,
I think a lot of films like have great morality tales, and they tell great stories. Like Saw One, before it became torture porn, what is what they call it.
yeah, I'm familiar with
But
the term.
but Saw One was a phenomenal, suspenseful story. It was phenomenal. It wasn't all about killing or not. It was about finding the bad guy, facing the demons in your past.
Yep.
It was a great story. Then it became more gore.
Yep.
Final Destination Part One. Oh my gosh, you can't cheat death. And everybody has had experiences where they thought they were gonna die. And now you have a movie that's saying you should have died, and therefore you've created a ripple effect of people being taken before their times because you didn't die. Um, it was a lot of movies. I think the reality is people have become desensitized
I
to
agree.
death,
Yep.
that they think things are boring. That's why when I do my movie reactions, if I say something made me afraid, I'm genuinely afraid because I think I have the spirit of discernment in me, and I know I really shouldn't be watching this film, and I'm not so desensitized with other things in the world that I could still connect emotionally. You know, one of the movies that terrified me that came out recently over the last 10 years?
I'd like to know.
Um, um oh my gosh, I just went blank. The little boy, he was like another rendition of Superman.
Oh, Brightburn.
Brightburn, there was a scene where he was looking for his mother flying through the kitchen
Mhm.
back and forth. That terrified me as a parent. Like, what if your child erase superpowers? What if your child is so angry and so frustrated in life that he's trying to kill you, and you fear not only for your life but the fact that you may have to hurt that child to survive. Like that scene was, oh my gosh, it destroyed me. And again, I think if horror movies got back to telling it, I think if we got back to more The Shining, Misery, Amityville horror, I think the horror genre can really excel.
I agree, man. I mean, I like slashers and I like blood and gore and stuff, but I have to say the things that I champion the most and the things that I think are way better grown up is I always say I'll take atmosphere over any sort of blood and guts any day of the week. I grew up on like Vincent Price and like Hammer movies and different things like that. And I'll take suspense and atmosphere and like building of tension over killing
Yes,
any day of the week, you know? I think
the,
there's
the, the
a
tension.
lot more talent in that. But
When the Texas Chainsaw Massacre the new one came out of what, 2004? Was
Yeah,
it
something like
2000?
that. 2004, 2009, maybe. I,
That movie, no, it was like 2004. I remember being in college.
oh,
That movie terrified me because it wasn't just bad guy cut your throat. No, it was you're lost. You're trying to depend on a family. You're realizing this family aren't what they seem. And it was just, you didn't know who was going to die because they didn't paint a character in any bad way. You wanted all the kids to live, but they couldn't. Um, they're just not making those movies anymore. It's all about chasing like a trend. And I think when we get away from chasing trends, I think we'll be back at it.
yeah, there's always been like you actually brought up a good point. There's always trends, there's always things in horror that, is popular and then it goes away and then 10, 15 years later they try to do it again. I mean, that's always been like that. But I don't have a lot of time left, so I want to make sure I get everything in here. I wanted to ask you, what is if you could pick three of your favorite horror films? I know that's a tough thing to do. What do you think your three would be?
Child's Play 1,
That's still great.
The Strangers Part 1,
Ooh, I love we love that.
The
We went
Strangers
for them as
Part.
Halloween one year.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
my
Child's Play.
stepdaughter, my wife, and I went as the man in the bag, and they went as the two other.
See? See, you got it. So Child's Play 1, The Strangers Part 1, and The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Now, what do you think is the most overrated horror series? Like, what do you think is what's the worst horror film you've ever seen?
The worst horror film I've ever seen. Hear No Evil, when Kane was the bad guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
I don't know why that was made. Oh my gosh, you just brought me to a good point. The best horror movie, in my opinion, in the last 10 years was Don't Breathe.
Oh, dude. Oh,
And
I
people
love
go
Don't Breathe.
suspense. I say it's horror, but
Oh, it is.
you want to talk about tension? The entire movie?
Oh,
Like you couldn't beat that.
I just had a buddy recently watch it because he hasn't seen it, and I tell you, it still blows people away, man. I think
No,
that movie's so high tense and like I actually that turned me on to that director Fede Alvarez. Like he's the one that did the new Alien movie. He's gonna be somebody to watch out for, man. I love that guy.
I didn't even know he did a new Alien movie.
Oh, it's great. It's
Um,
on streaming. That's called was it Romulus? I think.
yeah, it's Romulus. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it was worth checking out, dude. It was good. If you like the
I'm gonna
other,
have to,
you would
I'm
like
gonna have
it.
to get to that. And I will say this: I made a joke, and I would actually love. I know you're the interviewer, but I actually love to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure.
I just seen a new trailer, the A Woman in the Yard.
I watched your clip about it, and it does.
So,
I actually, from your clip, watched the trailer, and man, is that it does look spooky, man. I gotta say.
do you think adding people of color, Afro American, Latino? I hope I'm saying it correctly, Latino,
Yeah.
Afro Latino. I don't want to be incorrect, but people of color. Do you think the horror genre, adding people of color to movies, make it scarier? Because coming from an Afro American man, Black American man, when I see Black people in horror movies, it's so to me it's so out of fish out of water because we don't really do horror that it just makes things that much more creepy in my opinion.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't really watch movies like that, I guess. I mean, I think it's more I mean, I really enjoy the films of Jordan Peele, but I mean, I never really was like I think the whole subgenre of like, black horror cinema is something that, needs to be, better paid attention to because like I've always don't I always thought that that's not represented as well as it should be. I just watched the documentary on Shudder recently. I think it was called was it Black Noir? And it was all about horror cinema dating back from like the 70s to present. And I don't think people realize just how much, you know, the African Americans have contributed to the horror film. And like,
See, I don't care about the contributions much more so, and
are
I
you
appreciate.
asking me if I just see black folk in a picture if I think it's scarier?
Yeah, that's the first question.
Mhm.
Yes.
I mean, it's no difference for me if I just see anybody. I guess it would all depend on tension and atmosphere and a bunch of different factors for it to make me feel creepy. I'm not just going to see black people and be like, "Oh my God, it's scaring me."
You
You know, like,
stupid. Now, imagine. Can
hey,
you imagine?
maybe if you're a racist, that would scare you. But I mean,
No, but see, now you're not understanding the question.
okay.
Like, could you imagine the exorcism taking place in the South in the 1920s with a black family?
No, okay, now that I think would be instantly scary. Yes.
See, that's where, but that's what I meant. Like, it's something that triggers me when I see black people in horror films because it's so far from the norm.
And I
Like traditionally, like the Poltergeist and the Amityville Horror and The Exorcist, they were all horror stories, and the cast just happened to be white. I don't go
okay,
into the other stuff, but if you replace the cinematography and the color grading and put a black cast in that, to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this just so much more like it's creepy. And I'm trying to figure out, is it because it's not the norm or is it just creepier?
man,
Like what's really making Jordan Peele's movie appealing? Because when you look at a Jordan Peele's movie, it's the color grading. It's the way he makes black people look darker and the way the light reflects on the background and the music that's added to it. Things just seem creepier.
I've never really gave that a thought, but now that you pointed it out, I guess maybe you are right. I mean, maybe it does make things
It's
creepy.
fish out of water.
I never really thought about it, but I guess now that you point it out, I guess it is that way. But we have a minute left before I cut off, Josh. Do you want to keep going, or you want me to send you another?
Now, so what I would like to do, and I'm gonna say this on camera, I
Okay.
would like to have a three-part to this
Oh,
conversation. And I would love for this to come out. Then let's do this again so we could delve into more films and
okay.
then do it again.
Well, I
If
tell you
you're
what,
okay with it.
absolutely, sir. I tell you what, this is going to be the end of part one. Make sure you tune back in, and we're going to get back together here pretty soon, and we're going to do part two and part three, because obviously, me and you have a lot to talk about.
Yes, sir.
To tell you, thank you, brother. Thanks for coming on. The man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Josh Prey.
Thank you for seeing me. Can't wait to part two. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your patience.
Peace and love, Josh. Thank you so much.
Later.
See you, man.